Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 116 and we are at the very end of October, year 2023. I am coming to you from a chilly, slightly overcast, well, the sun's been peeking out, day here in Minnesota where I live with my husband and our two young children. I feel like fall has finally gotten pushed out by winter. I feel like the leaves don't always stay on this long, and it's been incredible. The colors have been so rich and so vibrant, and they've stayed on the trees for several weeks, and so we've gotten in so many beautiful hikes. I will have inserted some footage before this part that shows colors from various different hikes that we've gone on in the last couple of weeks, and it's just been absolutely beautiful. So yes, the weather has absolutely turned, and we have cut everything down, pulled everything out of our various gardens, and this year we're doing a little bit something different with our dahlias, and I think I mentioned it before. Here, the dahlias don't survive through the winter, so you're supposed to dig them all up and then hold on to them until it's time to plant in the spring when the last freeze is over. And we have hit or miss luck with that. Sometimes the tubers rot or mold, or they just don't always take. And so this year, instead of digging them all up, we are covering them. So we have cut everything back, and then we are covering them, and we will see how that goes. And yeah, I guess I'll report back in the spring and summer, and we'll see what comes back. But yes, everything else has been pulled up, cut back, and pretty much winterized. I think there are still some bushes that we need to cover with burlap. There are these evergreens that don't like sun in terms of they can get sunburnt. So basically when it snows a lot, the sunlight reflects off the snow, and then these particular kind of evergreens can get sunburnt, and so the leaves turn yellow and brown. So basically you have to just cover them with burlap to protect them, and they are fine. So need to do that. And I feel like everything else has pretty much been winterized. If not, I'll have to kind of finish that up soon. We had the tiniest bit of snowflakes recently, tiniest, nothing stuck. And it has just been really blustery and really cold, 20s cold, 20s Fahrenheit cold, and with the wind, it's starting to kind of get at your ears, so definitely need to layer all those winter clothes up. We had to pull out all the stuff for the kids, make sure things still fit, and I try to buy things that they might need at the end of the previous winter season when everything's on clearance for the next season, right? And I think I did okay. We'll have to double check boots, but I feel like snow pants and winter coats and mittens and stuff like that I think we're okay on, and hats. Their heads don't seem to be growing like they used to, and so the hats that I knit them last year or even from the year before still fit. Because I also like to knit them longer so they can fold them over their ears for extra ear protection from the wind, and so that gives you a little more leeway as far as size too. But yeah, so we're doing okay on that end. But yeah, it's definitely getting chilly. I feel like I blinked and October disappeared. It has been an enjoyable October in terms of the weather, in terms of hiking and spending quality time with my family. But yeah, I blinked and it's gone. So a big welcome to you for joining me here in this creative space today. I don't always come on a very regular interval. Sometimes it's every other week. Occasionally there might be an extra episode in there, and sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's once a month. And this time I think it's been a little more than 2 weeks since I was here last. And yeah, so thank you for joining me in this space. The way I usually organize my episodes is I have a vlog in the beginning that might capture some scenes from whenever the last time I recorded till now, and then we do an intro, welcome section, and then finished projects, works in progress, eats and reads, and then sometimes there is time for a food for thought section where I share things that may have been on my mind recently that I've put into a tangible, cohesive manner to share with you, and sometimes that section might include quote-unquote homework or a challenge for you. This time, I don't think I have something to add in that section, so just putting that up front here. I include closed captioning in all of my videos, so you click on that CC button at the end, or not the end, the bottom of the screen. Also, if I speak faster or slower than your preferences, YouTube also allows you to adjust the speed. I do include links to everything that I talk about in the description box below this video, so you might have to click show more, but I would definitely recommend that you check out that section for any information that you might be looking for. And if I've missed it, definitely comment below this video to let me know that there's something that you are looking for. I use Ravelry for all of my project pages, and those are linked separately below. So I'll put like designer websites or things like that first, and then below that we'll have the separate Ravelry project pages. I do try to include a lot of the information, if not more, than what I have included on my Ravelry project pages here on YouTube for accessibility and just as another way to learn and gather information about different things. I have read several books lately, and they're all a little bit different from each other. Maybe, yeah. And so we'll talk about that at the end as well. So I think that's everything. Let's get started. Okay, finished projects. I have one to share with you today, and it is the one that I am wearing. This is the Stratified, and it is a pullover designed by Tiff Nealon that I made some slight modifications to. I wanted it to be more of a slip over, and it is a worsted weight pullover. I also changed the neckline a little bit, and I will pull up my information here. It was originally released as part of a collection, and I can't remember when that collection had come out, but then later on it was available for individual purchasing, and so that's when I got the pattern. And the gauge is at 18 stitches for 25 by 25 rows or rounds for 4 inches of stockinette, and there is some slight texture variation in it. It is a raglan construction, so it's knit top down, and you do start with the neckband, and the neckband I did is a fold over collar because in the original one it's pretty narrow and much wider, and I just knew for the purpose of how I was going to wear it, I just wanted a closer in neckline that was a little more structured. And then I did short sleeves here, so barely any sleeves. I continued to finish off this darker green section and then went into the sleeve cuff. And then I cropped mine. I did the cropped length in the pattern as far as where the stripes finish, but then I knit the hem longer, this body hem section longer, and it hits right at the top of my hip bone, which is where I was aiming for. The pattern comes in 9 sizes, and I knit the second size to finish with 4 inches of positive ease. The recommendation for this pattern is 2 to 5 inches of positive ease. Something important to note with that is, of course, you can pick whatever ease or pick whatever size for the ease that you are looking for, but keep in mind that because the designer has a certain amount of ease written into the pattern, that if you change that, it's going to change the fit and how it might look on you. So just something to keep in mind. Of course, you can pick whatever size you want to, but just know that that will affect the overall finished look of it. And I use the recommended needles in the pattern, US 6, which is a 4mm for the collar and the hem and the sleeve ribbing, or I guess all hems, the ribbing sections, and then US 8 or 5mm for the main fabric. What I liked about this is that it has a raglan construction. I know raglans fit me well, and it's something that isn't super complicated, but there's the excitement of these color blocking sections, which are like mini goals throughout the pattern, where I can be like, okay, well, today I want to do this section, or today I want to do this section. And then there's little bits of texture that keep it interesting and something a little bit different. So it isn't just one color all the way through, or one like just stockinette all the way through, but there's like ways that it's broken up. So this gold section here has a little bit of texture. There's these eyelets here. There's a little bit of texture in this brown section here. And yeah, I am very pleased with the fit. I'm gonna turn around so hopefully you can see the back as well. I feel like there's not any like gaping, or it isn't like too boxy. And it is very comfortable. I feel like the sleeve circumference isn't too tight, but it also doesn't balloon out. And I can still wear a button-up shirt underneath without it feeling really bunchy in my armpit area. And yeah, it's a good fit for me. I used Pearl Soho's linen quill yarn, held double. It is a fingering weight yarn, and I have knit various projects with this yarn in the past, and so I had a big selection of colors to choose from for this project. And knowing it was going to be a slip over and cropped, I had a little more leeway because I needed to figure out my yardage for each of the colors. I did pick some other colors in case I wasn't able to double up on the striping sequence. So I think the pattern calls for 5 colors total, including a main color. And in the beginning, actually, I wasn't sure, I think, if I was gonna do sleeves or not. I knew I wanted to do the cropped length because it was going to be a layering piece, but I think in the beginning I wasn't sure about sleeves. And so I had to calculate how many yards based on the grams that I had of these yarns remaining to then compare that with what was in the pattern and give myself a little leeway with that, a little cushion. And so that's how I guessed how much yarn I would have. And then based on that, I would assign colors based on how much I had of each one to see if it had the correct yardage or the most comparable yardage as to what was in the pattern. And that's mostly how I picked this sequence out. Although, I mean, that's not totally true. I did pick my colors first, and then if I was happy with all of those colors playing together, then I kind of figured out the yardage from there. So I'm very pleased with how this turned out. The linen quill is a 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen blend. It comes in 439 yards for 100 grams. So if I hold that double, that's approximately 215 yards. And that would be a worsted weight. Oops, sorry. I realized last time that I would like sometimes clap my hands real loud or set my hands down real loud, and I'm really sorry. I feel like listening back on that audio, those sounds were a lot sharper and more interruptive. Is interruptive a word? Interrupting? It was very jarring, and I did not like that, and I am so sorry that that happened. And then I would think about trying to adjust the sound, but if I adjusted the sound, then I was also talking at the same time, so then that would dip weirdly. So I'm very sorry. I do talk with my hands a lot, which if you've been here for a while, you may know that. I will do my best to not make those like loud sounds. Sorry about that. Maybe I should just sit on my hands or keep them crossed. Yeah, what else to say about this? Oh, if you are going to do this modification for the neckline, I quadrupled the number of rounds in the pattern and then folded it to my cast on edge, which I always do an Old Norwegian cast on, which is also known as a German twisted cast on. It's a very stretchy cast on. I just make sure that my stitches are more spread out so that they're not too tight. And I knit to the cast on edge, and I never have an issue with it being too tight. Like, as you can see here, I'm gonna stretch it out and it's like plenty stretchy and just fine. I find that these fold over collars just add extra stability, and if for some reason it got super stretched out over time, I can put in an elastic just inside like a casing, and I wouldn't have to really do anything extra special or anything. So I could just thread a casing through one of the, like in between one of the stitches or something, sew the elastic together, and then just like let it kind of slide in, and it would be just fine. But I don't anticipate this stretching out to the point where I would need to do that. It seems to be just fine. And knitting it to the cast on edge also provides some stability, because that is like a, I don't know if the word fixed is the right word, but there's just a little less stretch there. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, the colors that I used. Okay, that would be nice to know, right? This dark heathered green is juniper green. This brown that sometimes seems to change a little more purpley in some lights is peach stone. This yellow ochre color is raw sienna. This bluey, smoky lavender color is purple smoke. And this mauvey pink is rosewood pink. Actually, there's a bigger section here. That'll be easier to see. They're all heathered, just based on how the linen takes up dye differently than the rest of the fibers. And I am really loving this soft, earthy, neutral-ish palette. I feel like it has been very easy to mix and match with different things. I had shared some photos of me wearing this on my Instagram, and I had a different plaid shirt underneath that had more like pinks and navies, I think, in it. And this one's more like really dark navy and purple and pink and white. And it is really comfortable. I don't have the collar out on this one. I feel like it sits fine either way, but I have the collar kind of tucked in on this one, and it's super comfortable. What else do I have to say about it? I don't think I have much else to say about it. I think that's it. We have 5 works in progress to go through today, and the first one that I'm going to share with you are a pair of socks that I've been working on. I was actually kind of hoping I would be done with them by now, but oh well, that's okay. These I am knitting as part of a knit-along hosted by Denise of Earth Tones Girl. It is her annual Falling Leaves socks knit-along that is ending November 15th, I believe. So I have about 2 weeks to finish these socks. And I think I can do it. I just need to sit down and do it. These are a pair of socks I am knitting for my dad. I'm using Patton's Croy sock yarn. Here they are. I like to knit my socks 2 at a time on their own sets of needles, and then I'm always kind of playing catch up with each one. So I'll knit one cuff, knit the second cuff, knit like 10 rounds of one leg, knit 10 rounds of the other leg. And then also if they're on their own needles, if I am going somewhere where I'm packing light, I only have to bring one sock with me. I don't have to bring 2 socks on one set of needles and have to like worry about yarn management or tangles or anything like that. So much more compact if I'm just carrying one sock. Here are my socks in progress. I have finished 2 legs, 2 heels, and I am on the feet. And I find this yarn to knit up closer to sport weight, even though I believe it's classified as fingering weight. And I have knit them on US 1.5 needles before. I can't remember if I've tried them on US 1, but they came out so dense. It was uncomfortable on my hands, and they will probably never wear a hole in them. But I find them to be much more comfortable knit up on US 2 needles, which I believe is US 2 2.75 millimeter. Yeah, 2.75 millimeter needles. I'm using ChiaoGoo 9-inch circulars, which I prefer using. I know they're not comfortable for everybody, so don't feel like just because I'm using them that you have to use them. I feel like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, but I don't like 9-inch because da 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 da. And that's okay, you don't have to use them. There's so many different tools. There's double pointed needles, there's magic loop, there are those what are those called? Flexi flips, where it's like a double pointed needle, but the middle has this like short cable join. There's just so many different ways, and even if you liked one way one day, maybe a year from now you'll like a different method, and that's okay too. So I generally will knit my socks using magic loop or 9-inch circulars, or depending on what kind of heel I use, I might use double pointed needles to do a heel flap, and then switch back to 9-inch circulars or magic loop to knit a gusset. It just kind of depends on my mood, the type of sock, and the needles that are available. I generally don't prefer knitting a whole pair of socks on double pointed needles. I just feel like I'm always going to drop them or pull the wrong one out, which I have done before. Yeah, I like going round and round. So I am not following a specific pattern. This yarn is self-striping, and it's really fun that way, and it keeps it exciting. I cast on 64 stitches using an old Norwegian cast on, and I am doing a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. And once I knit, let's see, how many rounds did I knit for the leg? 50 rounds. for the leg, which unstretched is 5 inches. And then I moved the beginning of round over 1 stitch to center the purl channels before starting a shadow wrap heel. And so here's my shadow wrap heel. I decided not to switch into a contrast color, just to continue using the main color, and it created a fun striping effect. Let me see if I can hold it up this way. The heel's a little bit dark, so it might be hard to see. But it creates a little bit of a bullseye effect just with how the stripes show up. And I did end up finding a starting point on both socks that was the same, so they should come out pretty close to identical. And then for the foot, I am doing the 2x2 rib on the top and then stockinette on the bottom. There's a little more on this sock, so you can see how the striping sequence looks on the bottom in stockinette. I really like how these are turning out. They've got a really great elasticity to them, so great stretch, but also great recovery. I think they should be really comfortable, and I don't know how many more rounds I have to go on the foot. I have to do a little measuring and see, but I'm guessing I'm at least halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through. So these should definitely get finished up this week. I am so excited about these. I really like how they turned out, and I think my yarn management should be okay. I have another ball of yarn that I could use for the toe if I don't have enough, but I'm pretty sure I have plenty. I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about playing yarn chicken with this. I should have plenty left, which will be great for another pair of socks, maybe if I want to do the heel in this yarn. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. But I'm really happy with how these are turning out. Next work in progress I had to go grab because I was working on them this morning as the kids were eating breakfast and getting ready for school, and I'm not sure why I thought I would be able to finish the crown decreases on it this morning, because it was a little bit of a rush getting the kids out the door this morning, and yeah, that just didn't happen. But I am almost done. I am on the crown decrease section. This is the classic ribbed hat by Purl Soho. It is a free pattern and they are running a knit along for it right now. I think the knit along goes through the end of November, and the yarn they have suggested for the pattern is their Cashmere Merino Bloom, which is an absolutely luxurious yarn, and it is probably the softest yarn I have ever worked with, and it's got this beautiful halo. The colors have a slight heathering to them. It is a DK weight, and it is just so soft. And I feel like because it's so soft, even if I would love to roll around in this yarn and wear like a big nice sweater in it, I feel like it would pill super easily, which is just part of wear and tear. Well, hopefully not tear, wear. But ideally, I prefer my sweaters to not like pill when I look at them or like when I sneeze or something. And so I think this yarn for me is a great accessory item where there's less friction. So as a hat, and I'm thinking that if I have enough remaining from all of the hats that I plan on making in this yarn, I would love to knit myself a cowl. And just something I can throw on to snuggle in on underneath my coat that's not super bulky. So that's the plan, and I don't think I would do much color management with that. I would just knit everything until it ran out. So most of the stripes would probably be pretty small, since with all of these I have been knitting until there's like maybe 2 grams left, so maybe that's not gonna work out for a cowl. So if there's only 2 grams left, there's definitely not going to be enough to knit a cowl. But I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. So this is the hat I am knitting for my mom. This color is Fresh Fig. It is 75% extra fine merino, 25% cashmere. It comes in 218 yards for 100 grams. And I think it's getting blown out just a little bit. All the clouds have disappeared and now it's really bright and sunny outside. But anyway, I just love this. And I have knit, this is my 4th one as part of this knit along. I've knit this hat multiple other times before, so this might be like my 8th or 9th one of this pattern, but I have yet to knit one for myself, and I really, really want to, and I've caked up yarn to knit the next one for myself, and oh, I can't wait. I kind of want to slide it on my head, but I'm afraid I'll lose stitches. Maybe if I put this brim down a little bit. Let's see, will this work? Oh, it's so nice. I love how the ribbing hugs my head, but it isn't too tight. And I really like the fold up brim because it gives extra warmth over my ears, and it is so soft. There's 0 itch factor on my forehead. I had my mom try on another one of my hats last winter, and it was knit in a different base. There was Surrey alpaca in it, and she felt like it was itching her head a little bit, and so I wanted to pick a yarn that would be super, super soft and super warm, so I think this one should do the trick. I am looking forward to gifting this hat to my mom. I have a stitch marker and progress keeper on here by my friend Maria, a forest charm. There's this oak leaf and a raw gemstone on it. And this stitch marker up here has, I think that's an amethyst bead. So yeah, very excited about these. Oh, and I'm knitting the hat on a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle on a 16-inch circumference, which is my favorite circumference for knitting hats. And I don't know if I primarily started out knitting mostly hats, so I had a lot of 16-inch circulars, but I have gained more 16-inch circulars since then, and I just really enjoy the round and round process of knitting on a 16-inch circular for hats. But yes, this will be done by the next time, but I don't think I'll show it again because I'll just show you my next hat that I have on the needles for this same pattern. Next up is another pattern I've knit more than once, which is a common theme here. If you haven't been here before, I often will try out a pattern, and then if I like it or if I want to make adjustments for the next one, I will almost immediately cast on another one and just kind of play around from there. Because oftentimes I am picking patterns that I've already thought about for a long time. Either I have been thinking about what is missing in my pieces that I would really love to wear, or maybe a certain color, or maybe it's a certain yarn fiber I want to try, or a color combination that I just can't get out of my head and I really need to get it out there into the world. And so I think about these things a lot before I start. And so then once I start, it's almost like it's not the final piece to it because there's still the process of making it, but it's definitely not on a complete whim usually. The things that I usually cast on a complete whim get taken out pretty quickly soon after because they're just, I don't know, because I haven't thought through it. And so most things I've thought through for quite some time ahead of time where I'm like thinking about gauge, I'm thinking about the feel of the fabric, maybe I have swatched, maybe I have just browsed what my options are, things like that. So that was a very long-winded explanation or introduction to me showing you my Building Blocks Drop Slipover version 2.0 for me because I knit a gray one earlier. And right now it's a little bit hard to show because, so it's a bottom-up construction, and once you finish the body portion and you're knitting the front and back, that part is separate. So you'll have stitches on hold for one of them while you work the other one. And that part is knit back and forth, not in the round. And so it ends up kind of being a little floppy to show. Anyway, the yarn that I'm using is by Purl Soho. It is a Hedgerow base, which if you like something more tweed and slightly thick and thin and has great stick factor, like, I don't usually split splice my yarns because I feel like a lot of the yarns I use have been much softer, but this yarn I was able to split splice and it was magic. It just like disappeared. The join just disappeared. So it was super cool. I tried it, I'll show you on a different project, and it didn't work because that yarn was way too soft and not toothy enough for it to work, and then I had to fix it and it was a little scary. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This yarn, did I say anything else about it? So it's 93% merino, 3.5% cashmere, 3.5% mulberry silk. Comes in 243 yards for 100 grams, and this color is House Wren. It is a beautiful, maybe medium-ish brown, medium to light brown with flecks of cream and other shades of brown and the occasional red. and I really like this color. I feel like it's a beautiful warm neutral. And so my gray one is definitely a cool toned neutral. There's flecks of blue and cream and black maybe in that one, very subtle. And then this one is like the opposite end. It's a warm neutral. And so it's, I think, really nice to have one of each. And I started with the size A, which is the first size, which should give me, size A should result in about 6 inches of positive ease. And this is again a layering piece for me, and here is where I'm at. This is actually the back portion. So I've finished the back shaping, and the parts that are on hold are the shoulders, which will be joined to the front once the front is done. And so I'll hold up here the front section. I'm working on the front stockinette portion. I have not gotten to the shaping section of the front, which includes the collar and the shoulder shaping yet. And what I am doing slightly different this time from my first one is I knit the body section a little bit longer. It is still cropped, but not as cropped as the gray one. And then for these armhole sections, since I am using it as a slip over and the sleeves by design are a little more fitted and I don't want it to be fitted, the first one I went up to a size C for the arm section, and this one I'm doing a size D just to change it up. And I've gotten a few questions about how that works. So the size A that I cast on, I am just talking about the horizontal portion, right? So the number of stitches on my needles. Now for the arm section, when I am modifying it to size D, I'm only changing the vertical, so number of rows. And then when I get back to the shoulder shaping, that's on size A again, because that is affecting the number of stitches, so horizontally. So the only parts that I'm following for size D here are the number of rows, so the vertical section. When I go pick up my sleeve cuff, I will pick up for the number of stitches for size D because my circumference will have been based on size D, not size A. And then for my neckband, that will be following size A because the shaping I've done is all in size A. Hopefully that helps clear it up a little bit, but it is not a difficult modification to do because basically it's just changing the number of stitches and then following the directions based on that size for those stitches. So this I think I will have done by next time, so I'll probably be wearing it next time because I just have a little bit longer to go in this front before I start the shaping section, and then it's just a matter of doing the ribbing, and that doesn't take very long. So I'm excited to have this piece added, and I feel like these kinds of overlayer pieces are super versatile because sometimes you just need a little bit of extra warmth, and because it's layered, if it gets too warm, it's easy to take off, but also because there aren't any long sleeves or bulky underarm sections, I can still put on my coat and not feel like my arms are super restricted. And when you're going in and out of buildings too, some places are really hot with the heaters on, some places are kind of chilly, and so then just be able to unzip your jacket but not have all that extra bulk can feel much more comfortable. The next 2 projects that I'm going to share with you are projects that I've not shared here yet. I don't believe I've shared them on Instagram either, so they are brand new. I think, let's see, I'll do this one first. This is a test. I have definitely cut back on my test knitting this year, and it has felt really, really good. It isn't that I don't enjoy test knitting, but having that constant deadline, but honestly still having like a life that I live, it just got to be a bit much. And I did it to myself. There's nobody telling me I have to volunteer for these positions. There's nobody telling me I have to sign up and apply for these different opportunities, but I did it to myself, and it just got to be a little much. And so I've definitely cut back this year, and it has felt really, really good, and I think I'm going to continue that into this next year. And no like, what's the word I'm looking for? like no number of how many I'm going to set myself to be allowed to do or not allowed to do or in any sort of time frame. I think before I apply for anything, I just need to be honest with myself and look at my schedule, look at the timeline, and see if it's something that's even feasible for me to do and if it's going to be an enjoyable process. And if it isn't going to check those boxes, do I really want to put myself through that? So that being said, this is a test knit for a designer that I have not tested for in the past, but a lot of my friends have, and I was kind of curious. I had an opening in my schedule to be able to squeeze one in, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. So I applied and I got it, and I'm so excited. This is the Highline Henley, designed by Tori Yu, and it had a good number of weeks for the project, which is also something that I am very aware of. I feel like ones that are too tight not only isn't very fair to all sizes that are testing, but it also isn't very fair to anybody who isn't just knitting constantly, right? And if you also need to order yarn, that takes time as well. And anyway, it's just a whole thing. So I'm going to show you what I have. Actually, I'm going to show you the yarn I'm using. And I won't go into too much detail because it is a test knit. It is not a secret one, but it is a test knit, so I don't want to go into too much detail. The yarn I'm using is Good Wool by Purl Soho. It is absolutely one of my favorite yarns to work with. It comes in 383 yards for 100 grams. It is not superwash, and it is 100% Andean Highland wool. And I feel like what is really special about this yarn is not only the price point, and is not only the huge color selection, which hopefully I'll have a screenshot or something here on the screen so you can see all the different colors, but this yarn I have knit up in like sport weight up to like a heavy DK, which, okay, now I'm saying it doesn't sound like a very big range. So let me backtrack here. What I'm trying to say is I have used this yarn with a US 4 needle as well as a US 5, a US 6, and a US 7 needle. And the fabric has all come out really nice. So I've used all 4 of these different needle sizes on this yarn, and I've really liked the fabric in each of those gauges, each of the different fabric densities. The main color I'm using here is Coastline Gray, I think. I just pulled out the tag for it, Coastline Gray. And I feel like it is a purple hued gray. And then my contrast color is Fresh Loganberry, which is a very jammy, plummy purple. I really like these two colors together. I feel like they are very October-y colored, but also that cozy, hunkered down winter. And I am knitting the first size. The recommendation is 8 to 10 inches of positive ease, and the first size gives me 8 inches of positive ease. And I'm gonna hold up what I've got so far. I am at a good point to show you what it's like, and I've done a quick steam block just for fit, just to try it on and see how it goes. Are you ready? Here it is. Oh, it's so lovely. So this is knit top down. It has got a very interesting new to me construction that you're doing simultaneously with the stripes. And I have to tell you, doing the short rows with these stripes looks magic. And looks like magic, looks magical. And then my picking up of stitches is very tidy. This shoulder detail, I can't stop looking at it. It looks so cool. It is so tidy. I love it. And then this neckline is a Henley neckline, so there's a button band. And I haven't quite figured out my button situation yet, but I did ask my husband if he was willing to try making me wooden buttons. My husband does woodworking as a hobby on the side, and he's made lots of beautiful things. Buttons, I don't believe he's tried yet. So I was inspired by Michael of Michael Makes Stuff, who is the husband of Maria of Forest Charm. He also does woodworking as a passionate hobby and has made these wooden buttons for Maria for one of her cardigans, I believe. So I think I'm going to show my husband the ones that Michael made and see if he thinks it's feasible for him to make these buttons. and I only need 3. So we'll see how it goes, but I think he can do it. He's made like small wooden things before too. Most of his projects are larger, but we're gonna see how that goes. I think it'll be really cool. I'm thinking of darker ones, like a darker stained one, but I don't know. I'm open to seeing what he comes up with, and they don't have to be perfectly matching, so I think that'll be fine. But yeah, so I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I have the sleeves to pick up, and that'll be fun to knit. I'm also really pleased with my side seam here. I did not do anything to do like a jogless join, and I'm gonna hold it up so you can see. There is a very slight like tensioning where you can maybe kind of see where it is, but I feel like there's very minimal jogging of the stripes. And what that means is as you go round and round, you're literally kind of going up like a staircase, and so sometimes the stripes, you know, will end up one off from each other. But I was really careful with my tensioning and tried to kind of pull it a little bit so that it would go up more and meet the next one. And all I did on the inside was twist the yarns on themselves to carry up the sides. So yeah, I'm super pleased with how all of the finishings, or not finishings, all of the, I don't know what you would call it. It's like the little details, right? The little nuances of a project. I'm just really happy with how all of those little things that I can't think of the word for are turning out. Last work in progress I'm going to share with you today is a brand new cast on. It is one that I've been wanting to do for a little while, and it is a project you've seen before. In fact, this is my 5th one of this pattern. Can you guess what it is? Can you guess? I'm going to tell you. This is the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. It is a very, very popular pattern, and it is one that I just really enjoy knitting. It has a very big gauge. I think in the pattern it's 14 stitches for 4 inches. And I don't think I've ever knit any of mine at 14 stitches. I think that I've always knit them at 15, 16, 17 or 18 stitches. And I've used various different weights of yarn for it. This time I'm using a new to me base, which was recently, released by Purl Soho. It is Yonder. It is 50% alpaca, 50% Highland wool. It is not superwash. This is an Aran weight yarn, and this colorway is Smoky Mauve. Mauve. I feel like because the first word is smoky, that it should be Smoky Mauve, because Smoky Mauve doesn't sound right. I don't know. Anyway, the color is very heathered. It is a gray with slight pinky lavender, maybe undertones to it. I feel like this is a color that can go warmer or cooler depending on what you are wearing it with. It's kind of one of those color shifting yarns, and if you look really closely, I feel like there's very subtle color variation in it. It's very lovely. It is super soft, very drapey. It is, what's the word? Maybe floofy? There's like a lot of floof to it. It does not feel very dense. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. All right, are you ready to see? So I cast on the first size, and the first size, the chest circumference is 46 inches, but at my gauge, I think it comes down to just under 44 inches because I'm knitting it at 15 stitches instead of 14 stitches. And I'm using US 9 needles, which I think the pattern calls for US 10 needles, but I wanted a slightly denser fabric. And then the ribbing is in US 7s. I think the pattern uses US 10 and US 8. Anyway, I don't remember. So here it is. Oh, it is so beautiful. I love this yoke so much. I did an old Norwegian cast on. I did not change the number of stitches, so I'm not giving that away because it's a paid for pattern, but I did do an old Norwegian cast on, and then just, I don't think I used the ribbing needles for this part either because I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be too tight. And then I did the short row shaping in the back. I did an extra set. I just wanted to make sure it was going to be nice and high in the back, and that's just for proper fitting. I skipped the short row shaping in the front because that gives like a more boat neckline, and I didn't want that. I've done that for 2 of them that I knit earlier on, and that was fine, but then I think all the ones I knit after that, I just skipped the front row short front short row shaping. And really all you do is you do the back short row shaping and you can just go right into the yoke. So that's what I did. I don't think I have anything else really to share about this right now. The sleeves are on holders. I plan on knitting nice long sleeves, which may or may not have any shaping to them. Yeah, I think I'm going to do nice long sleeves. And the body portion, I'm going to knit full length. I just want this to be something super cozy that I can just throw on over a pair of jeans, over leggings, really over anything. I want this to be that sweater that I just reach for in the morning when it's cold and I'm getting that first cup of coffee or tea poured. Oh, I'm so excited about this one. I love it. I love it. It's so soft and super drapey. This is not a yarn I feel like is very structured, probably because of the alpaca in it. However, because there's also the Highland wool in it, I do feel like it gives it a little bit of structure so it doesn't just all like stretch or drape out. But being that it is a new to me yarn, I have not obviously worn this garment yet, so I can't tell you how it wears over time or any pilling or any of that stuff. So that will be determined in the future as I wear it and just kind of see how that goes. We are back. I switched out the laundry and here we are. We are in the Eats and Reads section. The only thing I can think of as far as cooking goes recently is, I had made some soft pretzel buns because the holes filled in and they didn't look like pretzels anymore, but they looked like beautiful pretzel buns. My friend River of A Knitter's Homestead had shared in her Instagram stories that she was making pretzels because she was inspired by me because I made pretzels last time. Or I shared them in my previous episode. And then because she made them, then I was really wanting some soft pretzels. So then I made some with our 10-year-old and that was really fun. They're super quick and easy to make. I had linked to the recipe that I used in the previous episode, but maybe I'll share them below here as well. And hopefully I'll have inserted a photo here on the screen so you can see them. They're just delicious. And then recently I made a black sesame mochi cake, and that's out of this cookbook when I grabbed it. And this cookbook is A Common Table by Cynthia Chen McTurnan. It is a great cookbook. Everything that I've made from here so far has turned out, and I've made quite a few things. And I've made like the milk bread recipe from here. I made a black sesame one. I just love black sesame everything, so if there's black sesame in it, I will probably like it. There's a black sesame French toast. Yeah, I've probably made all the black sesame things in here, but it's so good. I love this book. The photos are just absolutely beautiful, and the recipes, they're just not fussy, I think. And I like how she has fused different cultural foods that are important to her and her husband and her family, and just kind of made it work together, I guess. Yeah, I really like it. So I made that, and hopefully there'll be a picture here, and I brought some over to my brothers, and not my brothers, plural. I do have plural brothers, but only one brother was there. Anyway, I don't know why I said that. But I brought some of the cake over to my brother and sister-in-law's house, and they made pizza. They have a pizza oven. It was just so good. Oh, so good. I ate so fast because I was so hungry, and everything smelled really, really good. And they also had made some moon cakes. They have the little like moon cake molds instead of the wooden ones that are more traditional, but they had like all these different ones. And they made the snow skin version, so it's like a steamed glutinous rice flour dough. So it's like a casing that you put the dough or the filling in, and then you put the thing in the mold, and then you like press it. So it has to be like just the right size, otherwise things like squish out everywhere. So we often get together to cook these not necessarily elaborate meals, but they always end up tasting really good. And we'll do like chili cook-offs and themed dinners, and it's just so much fun, and that's something we really enjoy. On to the books. So I have read a ton of books recently. I haven't been sleeping great, but I've been reading a lot. And so in order, the first 2 books that I read, it's a duology. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology by Leigh Bardugo, and I loved them. I ate them up. So I had read, was it called, I can't remember, the folk tales that I read earlier, and I read those months ago, and then several people had mentioned that I should look into this duology. It was by the same author, and at the time, I don't know why I hadn't picked them up yet, but I reserved them from the library, and I just fell in love with it. And the books, I think, came out a little bit ago. They came out in 2015 and 2016, and it is young adult fantasy fiction, adventure, romance, and a heist. I just like mix those 2 words together. There's danger, there's like good pacing. I liked the character development. I will say that in the beginning I was a little bit confused because, well, I don't think you have to read the trilogy before this one, at least from what I gathered and from what one of my friends told me. She said that you don't have to read the other ones first, and so she pointed me in the direction of this YouTube person who was explaining whether or not you have to read the other ones first, and basically you don't, and so I didn't. And besides, I hadn't checked out the trilogy from the library, so I had the duology on hand, so I read that first. Anyway, backstory here. But I really enjoyed it. The books are pretty long. I have them here. I need to return them to the library today. I think it's really cool that the pages are black on the edges and red on the other one. I haven't seen that before. I will say that I had some issues with like pronunciation of some of the names, and so then in my head I had a hard time like saying what they were. And so in the first book, they did not have the pronunciations. What was cool is that they had a map of where everything is, which I really appreciate, and just kind of gives my, I'm not someone who has a great sense of direction, but it just gave me a better sense of where everything was. Now the second book, I don't know why it's at the end and not in the beginning, but it does provide pronunciations, and I feel like that would have been helpful in the beginning. So it has the cast of characters. Hopefully this isn't getting blown out. But it also has the phonetic pronunciation of these names, and hopefully I'm not giving anything away by showing this to you. But I found that really helpful, and I wish it was in the first book, because then by the time I finished the second book is when I saw the pronunciations there, and that was not as helpful. So I did enjoy these books. I had a lot of thoughts kind of going in my head afterwards, like, can a person change and unlearn prejudices? Who's really like good versus bad? And it did, I did get invested. It was a little bit of a darker story, but I did really like all the main characters. It's written so that each chapter is from a different point of view, and it just kind of cycles through these main characters. But I did not get annoyed. I like the different point of view chapters, I think. What I don't like is the chapters that switch back and forth between times. I find that to be a little more annoying, but I do like the different point of views, because then you get kind of the same scenario, but you see it from a different point of view. And I did like that. I like that it's centered on like friendship, loyalties, integrity, and I found it a really easy to read book, and nothing was too gruesome or too violent. I mean, there is violence in there, but it just wasn't so intense to the point where I felt like, I had to put it down and not read it, which does happen with some other books. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The main characters are all like, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, somewhere in that late teens, early 20s age, I think. I don't quite remember now, but something like that. Now, the next book I read after that is a book that I've had on hold since the beginning of summer, maybe in the spring. It is a book that is super popular, and I had read a few of the other ones she had written prior first, just to kind of, I don't know, get my foot in the door or something. The book is Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I feel like I saw it everywhere we went. Like, it was on lawn chairs, it was on beach chairs, it was all over the place, and it's like this bright pink cover, so kind of hard to miss. generally, I will say I'm a little skeptical of books that are like super hyped, because I feel like they're never as good as they're hyped up to be. So I usually go into these kind of books with lower expectations, or try to have minimal expectations, so that I can just enjoy it for whatever it is and not have these hyped up ideas of what it's supposed to be. And I feel like that's like a healthy way for me to go into some of these reads. Otherwise, the anticipation can build up and you're like expecting the best book of the century, and it never is. So yeah, I got my hands on this. I found it to be a really easy read. I did not find it to be like super deep or life-changing or anything like that, but it was enjoyable. Some of the writing I felt like was a little clunky, so I didn't feel like I was like totally immersed in any of the pages where I got lost in it, which I feel like happens more often for me, well, in some other books where the writing is not so clunky. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was a fun read, and I found there were lots of parts of it that were relatable as far as like life changes go, transitions, people growing, and friendships, and just how that changes over time, and the baggage everybody brings in to any sort of relationship, whether it's romantic or not. And yeah, I did enjoy that aspect of it, and I thought it was really good. I finished it over like a few nights, I think. And it is, let's see, how long is this book? 388 pages. Oh no, that's including acknowledgments. Okay, well, 385 pages. There were a couple things in there that I felt like were a little repetitive, so that got annoying, but I feel like I felt that way with all the other books that I read by Emily Henry as well. So I think this is the 4th book I read by her. They're all books that I've read this year. I hadn't heard of her before. And so yeah, again, I thought it was an enjoyable read, not like the best book ever or something that I would necessarily recommend everybody has to read, but it was enjoyable. And the main characters, I believe they're all in their early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s, or just turned 30 or something like that. And so yeah, I thought it was enjoyable. Let me see if there was anything else. Oh, I guess one thing, well, let me get to the 4th book and then I'll kind of like wrap up all these reads. And yeah. So the 4th book I read is the last of the series of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. And this one just came out. This is science fiction fantasy. I feel like this is more middle grade, and I enjoyed it. This one's called The Chalice of the Gods, and again, it's not like super deep. I do find it enjoyable. I wanted to read it because I read the other ones already, and so it was just kind of nice to like finish it off. And since I didn't read the other ones when they came out, I read them kind of all, well, I read them all this year. This one, if I understand correctly, came out a lot later than the other ones, and so this one was published September 2023, whereas like the book right before this I think was published definitely, I think it was over a year ago or many years ago or something like that. I don't know what happened in between. I did not follow any of that. But this one, it's funny because the main characters in this one are seniors in high school, and then when I was reading Six of Crows, I mean, those kids weren't in high school, but they were like the same age, and they're doing like massively different things in massively different challenges. Both are in this like sci-fi fantasy, maybe not sci-fi, but like fantasy world, and about the same age, and like totally different types of scenarios. So I felt like that was kind of interesting because you're like trying to immerse yourself in that, and you're like, wait a minute, but they're also 17 or 18. Oh wait, but they're also like 18 or something. Anyway, so my general like wrap up of these books is that sometimes you just have to read things where there's a happy ending, and maybe there's sad things in between, and there often are to keep it realistic, right? But just to know that like good over evil, like that good will triumph, that heart and humanity and kindness will triumph. I need those endings. We just sometimes need the good to win and to have faith in humanity, and these books did that for me, even if they are fiction. That is everything I have for you today. Maybe that kind of is my food for thought, that we need faith in humanity and that good has to win. But how do you resolve those things, right? How do you move forward? How do you fix? How do you heal? It's it's tricky and it's complicated. With that, I hope you are doing well, taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.